Good day, speakers and participants. My name is Jessica Lee, and I am the Vice President of the International Youth Conference. Today, I have the honor to moderate the session focused on advancing women's empowerment on the sidelines of CSW68. We will delve into how to empower her in areas such as economics, access to education, health advocacy, leadership, and closing the gender gaps. Joining me today are three distinguished speakers. Vijve Arifin, co-founder and co-chair of Awareness 360. Tadenda NC Dizivimbo, economist. And she is also the global ambassador of Hallmark International Youth Club. And Dr. Priyanka Chahal, who is the Senior Executive Director of the International Youth Conference. She is also the former curator of the Global Shapers Bishkek Hub. Now, I would like to turn the floor to each of our speakers to introduce themselves. And Vishve, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. This is Rich Verifin. I'm signing in from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm the co-founder and co-chair of this global youth-led organization called Awareness 360. I'm also the former advisor to the Target Gender Equality Program at the United Nations Global Compact, and also I'm part of the 30 network at the United Nations UN Women. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm super honored to be joined by this esteemed panel of experts, and I want to express my sincere gratitude for their willingness to share their knowledge and insights. And also, as a male ally, my role today is to kind of amplify their voices and contribute to dismantling the systems that perpetuate gender inequality. And I'm super excited and looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we would glad to have your insights on these topics as we focus on empowering women to succeed in all areas possible. And Tadenda, please, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening to everybody joining us from all over the world. It is such a great pleasure, joy, and an honor to be amongst prestigious panelists and also just brilliant minds from across the world. My name is Tatenda Jimbo, which translates to we thank you. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for also having me. I was born and raised in the beautiful country of Zimbabwe, and then I moved to the United States in 2017, where I've been pursuing my education and my career. I am a trained economist. I love all things economics. I'm always saying, if you have any questions or want to talk anything economics, I'm your go-to girl. I would love to talk about policy making, development. And so being part of this conversation where we're talking about empowering women, bridging the gender inequality that strikes our world today is things that I am truly and deeply passionate about. I'm looking forward to the conversations, from learning from my distinguished panelists, hearing their thoughts, and also paving solutions to some of these problems that do face women in our society. I believe empowered women empower other women. So that is the goal, I believe, for this conversation and also where society is going. Thank you so much, Jessica, and back to you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I majored in economics in college, and it is so great to see an economist here. I hope that we will have a fruitful discussion today.
You know what? My background was also economics.
Really?
Oh, that's awesome! We have some economists here.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yes, and I would like to invite Dr. Chahal to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Rishvi and Tadinda. It's very great to hear that we are having the three economists and having the background in economics. So that's going to be a great, really interesting panel. And even the priority theme for CSW68 is also the economic empowerment, strengthening institutions for women around the world. So greetings, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, based on your geographical location. My name is Priyanka Chahal. I'm a medical doctor and also the Senior Executive Director at International Youth Conference. And thank you so much for joining us today. Actually, this panel is very important, and I think we all together must have to address the different issues. We must have to talk about the different solutions, how we can implement, especially at the grassroots. So please feel free to put your comments, ask your questions as we move forward for our discussions today. And yes, I'm very happy to be here and looking forward to have a great discussion with our other panelists and speakers here. So back to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chahal. And I can see from the chat that we have audience joining us from the Republic of Guinea, from Nepal. So the International Youth Conference, we have great supporters joining us from all around the world. We have been in place since 2019, first as a virtual platform. Then we proceeded to have the capacity to hold hybrid conferences 2 times a year. And this year, the International Youth Conference 9 will be held in Los Angeles. International Youth Conference 10 will be held in New York. It is a pleasure to be meeting all three speakers today on the sidelines of CSW68. And now I would like to ask our speakers, how can we empower women? How can we empower her, specifically on economics? And I know some of us, we have economics background, and Dr. Chahal, please feel free to chime in with your insights on how we are able to do so.
I can try to take a jab at it real quick. So I think it's very, very fundamental for us to understand what is economics, right? And it's a very broad term, and we wouldn't want to generalize it because economics is separated into different sectors. So we have things like the business industry, we have the manufacturing industry, we have the primary industry. And all of this, when we're looking at participation in the economy, it can start from education. It can also start education, getting into the formal sector, and then we also have the informal sector where we have people that are buying and selling goods and services without necessarily being part of the formal economy. So it is very crucial for us to capture those two main things, that we do have the formal sector where you, me, and our panelists here partake in, where we get into the 9-to-5 corporate job, or we get into tech and we get into different STEM industries. And then we also have people who are in the informal sector where they're conducting different trades. And for most people, I want to believe we might relate to this. We've probably bought fruits and veggies from our favorite vendor on the street. That is a woman carrying her baby on the back. We've come across all of this in different forms. So I believe it starts with identifying those different sectors that we have in our economy and seeing how women are participating in those and how they are showing up. Do they have the resources that they need to perform at their optimum in these sectors? Do they have the support that they need to be performing at their optimum in these sectors? And how can we be not only encouraging them, but also empowering them to be increasing in their capacity? So I'm very passionate about the informal sector because I believe that with the formal sector, we already have the infrastructure that supports women to go up the ladder. For example, I did my economics degree, and it was quite guaranteed that after graduating, I would get a job in the corporate world. And in the next 5 years, I can expect to be a senior executive or so. But with women who are in the informal sector, who are buying and selling on the side of the road, that is not guaranteed, because sometimes we also have laws that might prohibit them from doing their trade on the side of the road. And sometimes even we might have climate change, right? When it's raining and it's flooding, they might not be able to sell their goods. So the real question is, how do we empower women in the informal sector for them to continuously be able to provide for their families and also empower themselves economically? That comes down now to policy and making sure that we have infrastructure and resources that are able to facilitate this kind of trades. So maybe starting off with small loans, allowing women to have access to small loans that allows them to expand their businesses from becoming informal to formal. That probably also comes from subsidizing certain services that the government has for women to have access to certain resources within the economy. This way, not only are we allowing the participation of women within the economy, but we're also contributing to the economic growth because they're producing goods and services that is well needed for not only their families and communities, but also the nation at large. So it comes down to, again, identifying the different sectors that we have, which is informal and formal. And I will drive my point again that I would focus also mainly on empowering women in the informal sector because we have a large portion of that. I think Dr. Priyanka might be able to speak more on this with women in India, right? That there's a large informal sector, especially in developing countries, where women are found in the informal sector, either selling and buying goods and services within that industry. And so, if we develop infrastructures and systems that allows for us to channel resources and also capacity building for them to be able to formalize the sector and make the most out of it, I think we'll definitely see more women becoming more economically empowered and having the ability not only to contribute to our economy, but also improve the living standards of themselves and their families at large.
Thank you so much, Tadinda. And indeed, women's crucial contributions are at times not fully counted in the economy because there are areas that are not widely reported and documented with robust and reliable statistics. Information would be available, but it may not be timely because you still need the researchers to spend years studying the impacts and trends to provide effective outcomes and evaluations that will help with policy making. Dr. Chahal and Rivian, do you have any insights to this topic?
Priyanka, do you want to go for it, or you want me to?
Sure, Rizvi, you can go first as the economic field is your part, and then I will be for sure adding my insight as well from the healthcare background. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I totally recognize, like as a man, I recognize the privilege I hold and the responsibility I have to be, like a vocal ally in dismantling the very structures that continue the disadvantage women. So if we look into the statistics paint a grim picture. So we know that 70% of the world's extreme poor are women. And a fact often, exacerbated in the global south, especially in the grassroots in the global south. So, but these numbers don't tell the whole story. I mean, if I want to like share a story, last month, a young woman I met working with a microfinance organization in rural Bangladesh. So, spoke of the daily struggle to secure loans for her small business, a challenge her, like male counterparts rarely faced. So her story is just like one of the, like one of among millions, a testament to the systemic barriers women face in achieving economic independence. So if we talk about the solution, in my knowledge, like I have like a couple of things lined up. So I believe like microfinance initiatives, we need to kind of support organizations that provide women with access to small loans, financial literacy training, mentorship programs. So in my organization, we have two fellowship programs, and we give our utmost priorities to the young girls and women who want to, like be part of this fellowship program. So we need to kind of support organizations like this who are, like willing to support the women in the grassroots who want to, be part of the economical system within their community. So this empowers them to start and grow businesses and build assets and also contribute to their communities. And also, like I believe we are going to talk about this a little later. Like it's very important to kind of focus on the closing the gender pay gap, because advocate for policies that promote equal pay for equal work and address unconscious bias, which is very much visible in the community when it comes to hiring and promotion practices. And also, what I see, especially in the context of Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and in like South Asian countries, is the land ownership rights. So we need to ensure women have equal access to land ownership because this is a crucial asset for economic security, and particularly in the like rural areas in countries like Bangladesh. And also technology access, it's very much needed, because in the 21st century, if we don't invest in programs that bridges the digital divide and equip women, then we are doomed. Because with the skills to participate in the digital economy, like they can do wonders. So I believe these are the things that we need to kind of prioritize when we talk about economic empowerment and gender equality. Thank you so much. Over to you, Jessica.
Yes, thank you so much, Vijve. For
Thank you, Jessica.
yes,
I just want to jump in and just have to add, not so much, but only a few remarks about the
please.
field and especially focus on the economic empowerment for the women. So, as far as I'm having the experience of this field, as I've been involved in a different, you know, spaces where women are really struggling to build a small business, and they face the difficulty to connect it to the top one, and there is a huge gap actually. First, they also lack the capacity, as already the Tadanda and Desi already mentioned, especially in the healthcare as well. The pay scale is less than man. The community health workers, if we see in any hospital or in any hospital administration, any healthcare space, there are more women at the community healthcare space rather than men, right? So they also face the wide, huge pay gap. There are also the gender responsive policies that must be towards the women health, and especially how to empower them financially and to build them and to make them independent in that particular space. So even if I talk about like the remote areas, as Riza mentioned, even I had the opportunity to talk to women many times in our villages, communities. So most of the complaint, they were telling that they don't have the proper access to the healthcare, and they don't even want to prioritize the career in health, especially at the ground level, because they feel that they have to work a lot, and then people don't respect them that much, and the pay scale is very less. Rather than then they are choosing other fields as well. So there are a lot of things actually today we can discuss about. A lot of issues are there, but I think rather than just talking about issues, we also must have to implement and to talk more about the solution and how we can emphasize more talking at such spaces like International Youth Conference. Then, for example, Rizi has his own organizations, and how NGOs are also helping those women to come together and to find the solutions and to then empower them. And I think confidence is also a great asset that women can feel, and then support system must be there to feel them that they are powerful, they're gonna make it, and they have the dreams. And so I think education is very important along with the support system as well. So as we move toward our panel, I'll be sharing some of the insights about the healthcare system, how women are getting access to that, and how even we are promising, like the I would say on the higher level, we are promising that we are providing this and this to women, but actually at the ground level, there is nothing. And that's like my own experience as a doctor, and I have seen many things, and a lot of gaps are there. So I would also like to address that as we move forward in the panel. So yes, back to you, Jessica.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Chahal. In economics, we talk about empirical economics and how economics can be applied to different fields. Even in economics itself, there are different studies. For example, there are environmental economics and international economics. How we are able to empower women and uplift women's participation requires us to be specific about economics. Economics is also country specific. Not only will we have to focus on the microeconomics, but we will also have to focus on macroeconomics. And for an economy to thrive, we have to focus on women's representation and participation in different sectors. And reaching that gender equality is crucial because we can comprehensively benefit communities, especially in resourcefully and efficiently allocating human capital and talents that should be best allocated. And not only are we empowering women externally, but we are also empowering them to increase their confidence and have a firm standing in society. And Dr. Chahal, you also touch base on our next topic, which is access to education. And I would like to ask Tatenda and Rivje, do you have any insights on this topic and how we can empower her?
Rachel, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I believe this fight transcends economies. Also, like girls' education, particularly in rural areas, remains a critical battleground. So last year at a school in Zimbabwe, where a group of determined girls defied societal expectations and pursued their education. So Awareness 360 was, fortunate enough to provide the whole year of expenses to them. But to them, the whole opportunity was a very big opportunity. But if you think about it, this is such a, the basic human right a person can have. But for them, it was a big thing. So I would say like their passion and resilience were inspiring, but it is like it highlighted the vast disparities in access to quality education for girls in developing countries. So when we are talking about like access to education, when it comes to gender equality, like we need to have programs like targeted scholarship. So what does this mean? So suppose like we need to provide financial aid specifically for girls from marginalized communities and especially rural areas to incentivize higher education. So if we have like programs like this in different countries, especially in the developing countries, this helps a lot when it comes to the education. And also mentorship programs. There can be mentorship programs, there can be fellowship programs coming from the UN initiatives, the civil society organizations, or the governments. But connect girls with female mentors who can also offer guidance, support, and role models in like pursuing their academic dreams. And also I believe like addressing childcare needs as well. It's very important because we need to develop like affordable and accessible childcare options to allow mothers to pursue education and work opportunities. Because in the developing countries, especially in the grassroots, there are a lot of young girls who are also mothers, and because of their pregnancy, because of the early they're getting this motherhood, they're being deprived from education. So we also need to look into that, and we also need to focus on the child marriage and all of those aspects, because in countries like Bangladesh and India, child marriage is a big thing, and it's kind of depriving the young girls from having getting quality education. And also culturally sensitive education, it's extremely important because designate culture, like curriculums that address the specific needs and challenges of girls, promote gender equality. And also we need to come up with this idea of decolonization of education, because to us it's not the education that we have in the global south, it's not localized yet, because we are still focusing on the westernized education that we are having. So we need to decolonize it by localizing the current education system we are having right now. So there are like a couple of aspects that we need to look into when it comes to the education and gender equality.
Those are such great points, Rajiv, and I'm grateful for such a powerful introduction where you touched upon really crucial points that are opening up this discussion with main focus on rural areas, which essentially is where the biggest problem is. And so when I hear access to education, I'm thinking really about the baseline. What is it that hinders females to access that education, especially in rural areas or even in our urban areas? And coming down to the micro economic of it is that it's something simple as affordability. We experience persistent poverty, to some cases chronic poverty in rural areas where families are dependent on things like subsistence farming or again informal marketing, right? And they barely have enough just to put food on their table. And so it's now a decision of whether do we take the girl child to school or do we put food on the table? And this is a fight for survival, which to most of us we cannot relate to because we didn't have to go through that. And it's a privilege truly that we had access to education to be able to afford even to go to school. So it comes down to identifying that problem, that there is chronic or persistent poverty in education, how then can we empower families in rural areas to have enough money or to have enough resources to make education affordable to their children, be it the male child or the girl child? Once that problem is solved, we then go to even the quality of education. What kind of education is being provided in the school? Does it make them competent on a national level before it makes them competent on a global level, right? Because when we are getting education in our home countries, I think for the majority of us, we're hoping to better our countries and to work, in our countries' economies before we're pushed out to search for greener pastures. So we're really looking at that. Is the quality education being provided in these rural areas? Are they being provided with books? Do they have syllabuses? Do they have electricity? Do they have buildings, proper buildings for them to attend school in? I've been watching a lot of documentaries on YouTube that covers a lot of stories of children that are going to school in rural areas where sometimes they're going to school under a tree, right? And now under a tree, that's not a building. So now that's persistent on whether the weather is good or not. Are they able to go to school or not? And because of that, that consistently causes disruption in their accessibility to quality education. So we need to make sure that we also have the infrastructure, right, that allows to support this. And I come down back again to the household where, for me, it's a micro problem where we have patriarchy. The family is deciding the boy child over the female, they're choosing the boy child over the female child. I can attest to this, that I think in most African countries or in developing countries, there's been that common trend of investing educational resources in the male child over the female child. I know, for one, my grandmother didn't have access to higher education. She didn't have access to tertiary education, but her children do because of how the times are changing. So we need to be able to identify that problem right there, that there is preferential treatment over the male child compared to the female child, and begin to bridge that gap and make sure that the girl children also has a seat in the rural area educational systems and also in the country in general. And it also now comes up to, when we're in the tertiary education system, do women have access to resources, and also discriminatory laws? What are we doing about those? Why are women being discriminated against equal opportunities with men? And this also translates into the job opportunities that we're getting in the global economy. Why is it that with the same qualifications and with the same education, men are being able to get more wages compared to women? So these are things that are fundamentally starting at a microeconomic problem, that it starts in the household. It starts where there's this preferential treatment of the male child over the girl child. And it's also starting with things like economic resources. Do families have enough resources and capacity to take their children to school and give them access to affordable housing? So it rounds up to what Rajiv was saying with all the solutions that he provided, providing workshops, having the government even subsidizing education for people around the country, be it in rural areas and in urban areas, so that everybody has access to quality education, empowering women and families to invest in the girl child's education, not only primary school, but up to tertiary education, and giving them the choice to decide whether they want to pursue that further or not. It has to be a choice, and not something that is forced out of necessity. So we have to allow them the opportunity, give them the resources and also the environment that they need to at least have access to quality education before we can take away the privilege for them to have a better life.
Thank you, Tadenda. And Dr. Chahal, would you be able to add more insights on this point?
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Tadinda and Rizvi. Actually, I really empathize with it, especially Tadinda, you just mentioned a lot about, I think I don't know how to cover that much again, but that's really powerful, and your remarks are really holding the value that we really need to address. And I also agree with that you when you just mentioned that it starts from the home, right? It starts from the mindset, and when it starts from there, I think if trying to correct that mindset, trying to correct that in the household, then the change will get improved, the family will get improved, the family change that the girl is going to build in the future. So I think there's a saying that we that is a very important, that when we educate a girl, we educate the full generation, not just one person, right? So that's very important. I think access to education is very imperative, as I know where I grew up, where the girls are not even getting the education. The system is not that much that empowering the girl to get the education. And of course, there's a huge disparity between the male child and then the female child, and a lot of things are happening that families having a different religious and cultural barriers that they don't even think that it's very important to provide education to the girl child, and especially everybody if a family is going to build and planning the family planning like to be more children, they always focus to have the male child rather than the girl child. And I know many examples where the family kept reproducing, and then they are having the 7 girl childs, and then they were still thinking that they want a male child, and then the 8th one was the male child. Then later and then the family was very happy, and now the 7 girls who are there, they are not going to school. They just went to schools for the primary schooling. They didn't get the much nutrition, because that's also some belief in the families who are actually who are not educated. That's not their fault. They are from that remote areas where they didn't even get the education, their grandmothers, their families. And then those 7 girls didn't get proper education. They left the school, they didn't get proper nutrition, so that eventually affect their body growth, then their reproductive rights, and then when they grew up, and then everything again went into the wane. So that's very sad to see. And I think how we as a civil society members, how we as a youth advocates or leaders, how we see these things, and we try to address that, and we try to teach those families that how important it is to provide education to the girl child. And what happened in all of the rural areas, that the only sole source of income is agriculture, and most of the families are just dependent on the agricultural productivity, and that's eventually climate is affecting us. That's also the biggest concern, that if we talk about that climate is the biggest concern, and it is also affecting the economy, then ecosystem, then the families. And always the vulnerable communities are at the forefront of everything. But I would still say that education is the key to even at least to bow a seed of thought processing. And when the thought keep coming, the family grow, the mindset grow, and the mind will get the broad horizons. And then eventually the family will be thinking that, okay, now it's very important to provide education to that girl. And that's how the whole generation get the education. Even in my family, not everybody is educated, but my dad was having his bachelor, and he was knowing that how important it is to provide education. And today now I stand as a very first doctor in my whole family. I'm from a farmer family, and other girls that I see in my surrounding, that they are, at least they are taking the examples that Priyanka got the education, she became the doctor. At least that is implementing the dreams in their mind. And other families also thinking that now Priyanka is independent, and she is also helping her family. So they're also sending their girls to the school. So things are changing actually, but I would still say that education is one of the most important assets that women can have from the beginning, rather than, and then eventually she will figure it out. Just provide her the sources, just provide her the tool, just provide her the platform, and she will find the opportunities, right? And she will grow, and then she will make herself financially independent as well. And then of course there will be many barriers, as we already talked about, but still education is the first and only step that everybody should have to take, despite of different countries and everything. So I think we as youth advocates try to address these issues, and try to teach these families as well as much as we can. And civil society organizations and NGOs are really helping us all to do that, and to work on this cause and to find the solutions too. So yes, back to you, Jessica.
Yes, thank you so much. And I am so glad that I am able to join this panel with all three of you, because all three of you have amazing experiences to share. And just on the topic of education, we have to start with early childhood education. And if a family has the resources, the family can start education planning before the child is born. Invest in quality education can lift families out of poverty, especially out of the poverty trap. And women have been disproportionately impacted by the global pandemic when we see students, especially women students, female students, dropping out of school, and not having the opportunity to continue their studies. At times like these, we must have creative learning and learning that focus on social emotional learning, besides the core curricula that we have in school. We also need to strengthen the education sector with robust mentorship and tutorship programs, ones that promote extracurricular activities and personalization of each student's academic and individual needs so no one student is left behind. We need to revitalize, preserve, and conserve our cultures while immersing ourselves in global studies. We can be creative and innovative in blending traditions with novelty, even blending traditions with traditions, while respecting the rights of women and men, boys and girls. The ways that we take can be peaceful, amiable, inclusive, and representational. On the topic of promoting women's wellness and well being, how do we empower her in healthcare, public health, and in health in general? And here I would like to turn to our three amazing speakers here.
I think before we proceed to that, I really just want to take a quick moment to appreciate and celebrate Dr. Priyanka, sharing your story previously of you becoming a female doctor. Truly, that is remarkable, and I wish you all the success on this journey. In my language, we have a quote that says "Musha Mukadzi," which essentially translates to a home is built by a woman or community is built by a woman. So hearing that and hearing how you're empowering other girls to that, hey, it's possible, and changing and shifting the mindset within your own community. Charity begins at home. We are the change that we want to see in our community. We can do all the talking, we can sit at all the tables, come up with policies, but until people begin to see more people like you breaking those barriers, breaking those stereotypes, and really achieving their goals, we'll really begin to see the change that we want to see in our community. So I really just wanted to celebrate you and honor you and wish you all the best of luck in this journey.
Thank you so much, Tadinda, sweet of you, and thank you for reciting the other important remarks that you just said, and that's very important to tell all those young girls that you are capable, you can do this, and nobody can stop this. But of course, there will be many to pull your leg back. There will be many who will be saying that, hey, you can't do it, and there's nothing to do that much kind of hard work, that much study, because eventually you will end up at the um, uh, building a family. So that's going to be the end of result, and that's what I have heard from my neighbors. There are a lot of naysayers in my community, and I would say that I know and I can totally relate that there are going to be a lot of barriers. There are going to be a lot of bad time when you want to cry because you are a girl and you are facing a lot of barriers for getting your education. You are in the pain, of course, having other biological, things that you must have to encounter as you grow up. So there are many things, but just look at yourself, look in the mirror, and just say, I can do this. I have a lot of dreams, and I will do, and I will fly, and I will see the world beyond my village. So I think that's very powerful. And the mindset, your mindset lead you, your thoughts lead you. So it's just a message to all those girls out there. So just dream high. And with that, I want to back with Rizvi for his remarks.
Yeah. First of all, Dr. Priyanka, like we appreciate you and we celebrate you, and you're amazing, and congratulations on your education and everything that you do. I just want to add to the previous topic that we were having. So I believe like it's clear that women face this unique challenges in their pursuit of education or any kind of opportunities. But why should men like me care? Because here's the truth, like gender equality isn't a zero sum game. So when women are empowered and educated, families thrive, communities prosper, and also economies grow. So it's gender equality is not women issue, it's everyone's issue. So we need to prioritize it and come up with this holistic approach from everywhere, regardless of the gender. So now, if we turn our attention to the healthcare, women's healthcare advocacy, so I believe, the healthcare funding one of the challenges that we are facing. I mean, even my organization, because we focus on water, sanitation, and hygiene, and WASH very much falls under the healthcare system. So I believe we don't have the adequate funding in the healthcare system. So when it comes to WASH, a lot of young girls and women, they miss out their education. They would, like, miss their schools, their opportunities because of menstrual cycle, because of like lack of menstrual hygiene kits. So it happens in the grassroots. It's very much exists in the rural areas in different communities. So I believe, like, if we increase our funding, I mean, we can still see there, like, pink tax and pink, like the things which are pink in color. You need to pay more for those things, and this is 21st century, and this is absolutely absurd. So we need to kind of increase the healthcare funding into the whole women's healthcare spectrum, because without that, like, we cannot really come up with a solution. Because advocate for increased public and private investment in healthcare system in the global south, with a focus on another thing is maternal health services. It's absolutely crucial. And also we need to invest in infrastructure as well. So when it comes to water, sanitation, and hygiene, there, literally in some places in the global south, there are literally no existence of inclusive toilets, even in the schools. I mean, women don't really, young girls, they don't have like good toilets where, like clean toilet so that they can use it. And oftentimes, because of the infrastructure, they cannot even feel safe to use those toilets. So it's very, very important. And also it increases gender-based balance as well, because oftentimes countries in Africa, countries in Asia, young girls and women, when they want to access the toilets, it's usually kind of far from their house. So they face a lot of violence when they want to kind of access those facilities. So build and maintain healthcare facilities, particularly in rural areas, to ensure convenient access for women. It's extremely, extremely important. And also, I believe we need to kind of combat stigmas as well. So address cultural and religious stigma surrounding sexual and reproductive health services. It's very much there. I mean, I work in the grassroots. I see that on a daily basis. I mean, people don't even want to talk about menstruation. It's a very natural thing, but it's kind of like a taboo in different parts of the country where I am from. So we work with different sex workers communities, slum dwellers, underprivileged school children, and they're not aware of this kind of things. So we also need to educate young boys as well about this kind of things, like menstrual cycles, where sex education. So it's very much a taboo, and we need to talk about it, and we need to combat this stigmas. I very much believe that. And also we need to empower women with health information, because without the information, the women themselves, they're not even aware of all of those things, right? So provide comprehensive sexual and reproductive health education to girls and women, and promoting informed decision making would be another solution that we can come up with. So when we do like WASH campaigns in different communities, especially when we work with the sex workers community, they don't have the basic knowledge of sexual transmitted diseases, where about their basic health, about their hygiene. So we need to kind of educate them. We need to provide those information and knowledge to them in order to combat these issues. Thank you, Jess.
That is a great starting point, Rajiv. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I am equally very passionate, especially about making healthcare accessible and affordable to women and girls, not only in rural areas, but in urban areas. I think we face that biggest barrier of accessibility. Here in the United States, it is a well-known fact that healthcare, or accessing healthcare, quality healthcare, is very expensive. And then now, if you mirror that back to developing countries, where again, we're talking about how in rural areas, their main priority is putting food on their table, right? So things like accessing quality healthcare systems is not a priority to them. And when we look at the female body, it's very complex. We're experiencing menstrual cycles every month. This is very expensive. On average, here in the United States, we're spending close to $15 just to buy pads and tampons, right? Which is very ironic that that amount is the general income of people in rural areas, if not more. So now you can, if you run parallels between the statistics, that here in a developed country, we're spending close to $15 per month just to buy menstrual resources, and that is income that is enough to support a family in rural areas for a whole month. You then look at what that family in a rural area in developing countries would be prioritizing. Would they be prioritizing the healthcare, the accessibility of these menstrual resources for their girl child, or they'll be prioritizing putting food on their table? I know in most developing countries, at least I can speak for Zimbabwe, that we have female children that end up using cloth instead of pads, and this becomes messy because that they're prone to infections when using such things. They're prone to messing up their clothes, and that also causes embarrassment and humiliation when they're messing up their clothes and they're going to school. So we need to begin to, again, I love how Rajiv said, go back to the grassroots, focus on the grassroots communities. Are we providing accessible healthcare, the fundamental basic needs for women, such as pads, for girls to be able to have a dignified period? There's a campaign I know that is going on in my country right now, Pad the Girl Child, just providing basic pads to females, and that is the basic need. And then when we go to the macro level, we're now looking at research, things like breast cancer. Do we have sufficient research that not only empowers women, but that also informs the healthcare system of the different complex diseases that women face? Are we advancing and supporting research that can prolong the life expectancy of women? Are we supporting even the facilities and resources that are enabling women to have not only a longer life, but a healthier life? So that also comes down to lifestyle. Are we facilitating a lifestyle within our women that allows them to have a clean reproductive system without too many complications, and also accessing this kind of information? So I think overall, we need to prioritize the healthcare of women and girls. And it again starts from empowering the girl child by giving her the basic needs, the knowledge that she needs, the resources that she needs. And then on a tertiary level, also making sure that we are equipping our women not only with the knowledge, but also investing in the research that prolongs the life expectancy of women and make sure that it supports a healthy lifestyle for women in the long run.
Thank you so much. And health advocacy indeed needs to start with raising awareness and education about different health topics, such as sexual education and reproductive education. The speakers here today are inspirations to me because you have overcome challenges to get to where you are now. Congratulations, Dr. Chahal, on your achievements. You are now advocating for others, but never do we forget that we come from backgrounds where we have to constantly make choices. What is the opportunity cost for taking this action over the other? Resources are finite, and in economics and in education, we learn about efficiency and how to allocate our resources. Every community has their own priorities. How do we balance the budget while allocating funds and resources to various areas? Do we put more focus on empowering women's participation? What are the benefits of doing so? How about leadership roles? What is the representation you see in your areas, especially pertaining to leadership roles? These are questions that prompt us to look into public-private partnership, the public sector, and the private sector. We need to empower women to break barriers, to take on leadership roles fearlessly and with support. And now I would like to turn to our last topic, which is closing gender gaps. And I know, Tadenda, you have a presentation to make specifically on this topic, and I would like to give you the floor.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for that time, Jessica. And I'll start this with, I think it is safe for me to claim that we're all familiar with the quote, charity begins at home. And I believe this code exactly describes the problem of the gender gap, which I believe the gender gap begins at home. And therefore, the solution is to close the gender gap from home. How so, you might ask? I hope to capture your attention and consideration as I share my thoughts on this paramount global issue of closing the gender gap. First and foremost, it is important for us to define the gender gap. According to the World Economic Forum, the gender gap is the difference between women and men as reflected in social, political, intellectual, cultural, or economic attainments or attitudes. The Global Gender Gap Index then measures this gap in 4 key areas, which are health, education, economics, and politics. Breaking down these 4 key variables, we find that for education in many developing countries, girls have lower access to education compared to boys. According to UNESCO, in sub-Saharan Africa, only 76 girls are enrolled in primary school for every 100 boys. Factors such as poverty, cultural norms, and early marriage can contribute to this gap, as discussed in this panel already. We also find that in employment, women in developing countries often then face barriers to entering the workforce. The International Labour Organization reports that globally, women are 26% less likely to be employed than men. Factors such as lack of access to skills training, discriminatory laws and practices, and limited job opportunities contribute to this disparity. This goes without saying for the wage gap that is also experienced in the macro global economy, where for every dollar men get paid, women only get 76 cents. There is a massive wage gap discrepancy in the business and STEM industry, which again can be linked to issues of gender-based discrimination in the labor force. As we discussed in healthcare, women and girls in developing countries may have less access to healthcare services. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 830 women die from preventable diseases caused related to pregnancy and childbirth every day, with 99% of these deaths occurring in developing countries. Limited access to maternal care and reproductive health services contributes to this alarming statistic. We, however, see this gap closing in developed economies as healthcare becomes more accessible and affordable to women, as we have been discussing in this panel. This model could be adopted and implemented in developing economies to better improve the healthcare facilities for women and girls. Personally, for me, as a recent Running Start Congressional Fellow, the most interesting one of all is political representation, as women are often underrepresented in political leadership roles in developing countries, even in developed economies. Ironically, politics or policy making is what determines the laws governing our nations, yet we have very few women sitting on such important decision-making tables. We often hear the infamous quote, "Oh, leave the politics for men." We need to break the stereotypes and limitations and have more politically inclusive systems for female leadership. Rwanda is a wonderful case study as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. It is also leading in having more female members of parliament. I did a research paper back in which I investigated the correlation of the gross domestic product, a measure of economic growth, and women inclusion in different sectors of the economy using Saudi Arabia as a case study. I found a positive correlation to this correlation, meaning the more women are included in the functionality of an economy, economic growth goes up. Meaning we need more women sitting and informing decisions at a governance level. According to the Interparliamentary Union as of 2021, only 25% of all national parliamentarians were women. This underrepresentation can affect the policies and decisions that are made, leading to a lack of gender-sensitive governance. We then begin to ask ourselves, what causes such a gap? My answer to that as an economist is simple. If gender inequality starts in the home, and this is fundamentally a microeconomics problem, then closing the gender gap also begins in the home. I think we can all agree and be backed up by data and history that there has been an emphasis and investment on the male child in the household compared to the female child. This has been perpetuated by defined gender roles that in some cases have robbed the investment of female education. In some cultures, there is commonality of confining the female to household chores only. And this becomes problematic as this goes on a macro level and does not empower the girl child to have equal access and opportunity to what the global economy has to offer. So, with such a foundation and model, as we become older, the gap is only further exacerbated, and we begin to see it manifest in society, in our business, in healthcare, in our political and educational systems. How to solve this? I believe in solving the root cause of this problem, which I've identified as a micro level household issue. If we can begin to invest more in the girl child, that is their education, their healthcare, well-being, empowering them from a young age, we set them up for success in the global economy. It becomes an issue of equality and equity that is giving all children, either male or female, the same level of investment from early on. By so doing, we create a mirroring effect into the macro systems of then having equal opportunities for both male and females, be it in business, healthcare, or political sphere. Remember my introduction. Charity begins at home. I end it with this simplified solution. Closing the gender gap begins at home. And with that, Jennifer, I give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Tadenda. Thank you for your presentation. Dr. Chahal was experiencing network issues, but she remains with us in the background of the virtual platform. And I am just so glad that I am able to join all three of you today. My name is Jessica, actually, Tadenda, but that is okay. We are actually approaching the end of this session, and I would like to turn the floor to our speakers to share their final remarks.
I'll give it over to Ajib. And Jessica, thank you so much for that correction. I apologize for the mistake.
No problem, that is okay.
Thank you. Like it's my first of all, it's my absolute honor and pleasure to be here with this three amazing ladies, and I'm so grateful that I'm being part of this conversation. So I believe like the goals that we were talking about here, achieving these goals require more than just female voices. So we need to, we need men to be active allies, because dismantling the unconscious bias that fuels inequality, this means educating young boys in schools about feminism, not as a fringe ideology, but a framework for creating a just and equitable world. So let's teach them to be respectful partners, celebrate female achievements, and challenge restrictive gender norms. So I believe feminism is not about women seeking dominance over men, which is absurd. It's not the case. It's about a shared vision of a world where everyone, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to reach their full potential, and it's a perspective that benefits all of the society. So and also, like, to conclude my remark, I believe we need to remember that the topics and suggestions we have just discussed are just some of the many strategies that can contribute to gender equality, and collaboration across sectors like governments, NGOs, the private sector, and individuals is crucial for achieving lasting change. And thank you so much, Jessica, Priyanka, and Totenda. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my thoughts in this conversation, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rizvi and Jessica. Hi, Tadindam. I'm actually here, but I hope I'm audible. I can't open my camera because I don't know suddenly what happened, that my camera got frozen due to a lot of background opening in my window. So thank you so much, Rizvi and Tarinda. Sorry for the inconvenience, but the remarks were really, really grateful and helpful. And I'm sure that many of our participants and audience are also getting great insights from that. Even I myself is learning, and I think we all learn from each other. There's no, learning limitations. And it's always great to connect with such great personalities who really share the great work and without sugarcoating it, actually, because at the higher level we always hear the sugarcoating of the words and the less actions and just more speaking. But I believe that I believe in the such community of especially the youth community where we speak and we know the things and we take that actions for those issues. And I think that is the real advocacy and leadership rather than being just sugarcoating the words on the higher level. So thank you so much, Sarinda. Your presentation was really great, where you also talked about the statistics and the Rizvi. As I already know him from many years, he's doing really great work, and I completely agree on this that we also need man with us. And I think man support is very important, and not just about the fake feminism. It's a different and complicated things that we must not have to, move our mind towards that topic. Anyway, so thank you, Jessica. Back to you, and I think we are about to wrap up and have to end the live in a few minutes.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Chahal. Tadenda, would you like to leave some final remarks?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica. I would also firstly want to thank both these panelists, Rajiv and Dr. Priyanka. It's been such an honor to learn from such brilliant minds. And Jessica, thank you so much for moderating so well and gracefully. I learned so much just from this panel that, it is very important for us youth to come together and discuss these global issues. We're never too young. Again, we are the change that we want to see in our communities. It begins with these conversations, sparking up conversations, identifying the problems, and wanting to be the solution to those problems. I'm aware of the different community initiatives that are already ongoing, right? Empowered women, empower women. That's what we're looking for, to empower our women in rural areas, in urban areas, and across the global economy. Let it be that we do not leave the option of women to choose whether to go to school or put food on their table, or whether to have access to affordable healthcare and to have access to quality education. Let that be a basic necessity, a basic human right, that people have access to all of these things. I call upon our governments, I call upon our policymakers, the people that have a seat at these tables that inform decisions. Let it be that we begin to open our resources, capacity building for women across the globe, especially in rural areas. We cannot just focus on the urban areas. We cannot just focus on developed countries. We cannot just focus on the women that are already on the table. Let's broaden that up. Let's bring more voices on that table. The woman who is in the rural area, we need her voice on the table for us to be able to understand the problems that she faces. We need to be able to hear the day-to-day struggles that she faces before we can implement any effective solution. So I am a big proponent of allowing people to share their stories and also informing the decisions that will change their lives. So not only are we here, the females that are on this table, but even Rajiv, we need more male counterparts that are uplifting women and making them go up the ladder, identifying the problems and also identifying the privilege and using it to empower women. I leave us with this: empowered women empower women. It is up to us to uphold and uplift all women across the globe, giving them the opportunity to hope for a better future, and also giving them the opportunity to access the resources and opportunities across the global economy. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much to the panelists that were here, and thank you so much for having me. Back to you, Jessica.
At the conclusion of the session, I would like to thank our three amazing speakers once again, Rizve, Tatenda, and Dr. Chahal, for sharing their insights and experiences regarding how we empower women, empower her, in areas such as economics, access to education, health advocacy, leadership, and closing the gender gaps. Your deliberations have enriched women's empowerment to levels that suggest deeper review, more effective communication, and strengthened connection. We take meaningful actions to create sustainable impacts that lead to a sustainable future. Thank you, participants, for joining us today and for sharing your time and day with us. Farewell, and I wish you all success and good health. Empower and uplift forward and onward.